Welcome to the next episode of Digital Twin Podcast. Today we will continue what we started 1 week ago, and we will talk about what we should do if you already have a project related with digital transformation and the project failed.
Digital Twin Podcast is a place where technology and business is going hand in hand.
If you are thinking about digitalizing your company, you found the right place.
Podcast is hosted by Adrian Stelmach, consultant who implements IT solutions for manufacturing companies.
And Paul Pachovich, industrial digitalization expert, who helps global companies to optimize production processes. Absolutely. Let's say that we will compare digital transformation to a glass of milk. And that milk has already spilled on the table. What do we do?
Yeah, so first of all, you have to define, I would say, how do we know that that the project failed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we know that? You have, I would say, two KPIs or two group of KPIs which you can define it. It could be measurable and immeasurable. So the measurable one, it will be that you can say, okay, we wanted to implement, for example, robotization or let's say automation of reporting.
Right.
And we wanted to make some savings with it, with a specific amount of money, right? And if we see that after project actually is working and running and we don't have it, so we didn't meet this goal, that we know that something is wrong.
So that means we should have like a clear definition of what was the expected result, right?
Yeah.
We need to be able to measure it to say if it worked or it didn't work, right?
Yeah, some of them should be, as I said, measurable, but the other ones, it's like, for example, how the people is experiencing this tool, this software, this hardware, and how actually, because it's also related with change management, which we talked about it last time, but how people are using it. Are they happy because the technology actually helped them, or the morals are down and actually the efficiency is down as well? So we wanted to do something good, but if we scale it and if we fit it in the organization, it seems that it didn't work as we planned.
Sure. So let's say that we have already defined the outcome, and the outcome is not what we are experiencing right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the next step? Like what can we do if we planned that we will have this ROI on this project and this is not happening? How to like go back and figure out what happened. What would be the process there?
Yeah. So first thing is that, as I said, that we know exactly. It's not the feeling, but we know by specific data that the project fails. The second question is which part of the project failed, right? So we have to cut it by pieces, and pieces I mean, because you have let's say you have a robot. I like robots because I think it's more easier for everyone to understand and to visualize it. Okay, so we buy a robot, and if we buy a robot and implement it in existing technological process, it means that there's a robot, there's a tool which robot uses to do the process, and also there's a machine which in the surrounding which he's working on. There's operator which is working with this robot, and also there's a lot of software, different software, which he have to communicate with. And now we have to ask, okay, so the project fails, so the robot actually is not that efficient as we think it will be. So which part of those things which are divided for the project, for the robotization project, is the problematic one? And we have to define I will not say ROI, but we have to know the goal for each of those parts. Yeah. We should do it on the beginning, but maybe we didn't. So that's
Sure.
the now it's the good time to do it.
Okay. I have another example that might kind of work with the one that you just said. Let's say that we have any kind of process. It could be sales process. It could be any kind of process. That process consists of smaller processes or smaller tasks, and then you cannot say that this process doesn't work without understanding what smaller elements of that process don't work. So you cannot evaluate the whole process. You can either say it works or it doesn't work. But in order for you to actually implement changes that would fix it, you have to understand what smaller processes are not operating properly, because those smaller processes are responsible for overall performance of the whole process that we're looking at. So
Yeah.
it's basically the same thing, but just an example from my world.
Okay, yeah, I have another example. For example, CRM, right? So let's say a company is using a classic emails to salespeople using emails to report to their sales director what's the plans, what they are doing, how was the visits in their customers and so on. And now company is saying, okay, let's make it even more digital, and let's say that we have a software which is CRM, and we will put all of the data from those visits inside of the CRM. So every customer is a new instance inside of the CRM, and with those instances, we have related every sale opportunity with it. And after implementing it, we see that there's a problem because no one is using it. So before we had those emails and the sales director could actually read them, but now we have less information, and some of them are, let's say, delayed. Did you experience similar situations in implementing CRMs?
Yeah, there's hundreds of different issues whenever implementing CRM. The people don't feel like doing it, not doing this right. So yeah, there's so many different elements of implementing that process, and that implementing a CRM, has a lot to do with implementing a digital transformation process, right? Because they both processes that consist of certain smaller tasks, and they all have to kind of follow certain flow of action, in order to perform. So yeah, so there's not, I haven't experienced that particular one, but I have experienced 100 of different ones. So let's say that we already experiencing the fact that what we anticipated does not work. What would you start with, in terms of like fixing this process? Would you start with analyzing the process? Would you start with analyzing the skill set of people, maybe training them? What would be the first step?
The first thing is that, as I said, I will define who have to deal with the analyzing process, because you can do it in-house, but if the same team which invented the project is now analyzing the failness of the project, it doesn't have to be exactly the best idea. Or you can outsource it from outside. So you can hire a consultant which goes with a clear head, and he will exactly take this project step by step and think about it, which parts of this project, as I said before, didn't fit to each other, right? So this is the first thing, to decide who will work on it, and to divide the project for smaller parts. And then each of the part need to have a specific, you need to have a specific outcome from it, right? So you need to know, okay, robot costs this amount of money, and he should, for example, do the process 2 times faster than it was before by human. Is it working like that, or does it not working like that?
Okay, so you would use some external help, right? Just yeah, it doesn't make sense to ask the people that messed it up to fix it. So somebody that comes from outside of the organization is basically auditing the process, right? But very important that person has to have relevant knowledge, right? So that would have to be some kind of consultant, right? And then so that would be the first step. What about the people that were the part of that digitalization process? It might happen that they didn't have the know-how, they didn't have enough information. Maybe they were not paying attention to the implementation properly. Would you also address that with the people that were the part of that process?
Yeah, I think the coaching is the key over here, but it depends because you can implement, for example, this robot or CRM. And if the problem is actually how people are using it, I think the coaching maybe on the beginning was not sufficient, or maybe the change management goes wrong. But usually it's not the key. Okay, usually the key is much deeper, and most of the times, which I experience, is that people want to put something which doesn't fit the entire surrounding. Right, this is the problem. Because we have, for example, machine which is 50 years old, and that now we want to put a robot, and it doesn't, communicate in the right way it should.
Okay, sure. Because what I'm thinking right now is I love agile approach, to implementing change, and I think that the third main element of fixing a failed process would be changing the approach to implementation itself. So I would change, I would iterate the process, and I would do like short sprints, and every short sprint I would make sure that we are going in the right direction. So iteration of the process, I think, would be the next step that I would take to make sure that whenever we are fixing the problem, we're not gonna go this waterfall style and we'll find out that it didn't work after 3 months. I would like to have at least one meeting with the stakeholders once a week, just to make sure that we are on the same page and just to make sure that we are going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think also the question is if the project, which we defined as a failed one, it is like it was the entire project which is a failed one, or this is just like a part of a bigger picture. Because you can make a proof of concept project from, let's say, one robot, but you want to have 100. So you do you do the first one, you learn from it, you change the approach, you agile, and the second one will be done in a different approach, with a different approach. So you have the agile, and you have you use the experience from the first step to do the second one, right?
Right.
But if this one robot was the entire project, so now we have the bigger problem, right? Because we don't have the second step, right?
Sure.
It was the goal by itself.
Sure.
So I think if that was the project, and we figured out on the end that something is wrong, it means that the fixing should be made in an agile way.
Yep. And then again, standards. We spoke about standards in some of the episodes before, but standards that we can look at from a different perspective. Standards that we can use to not make similar mistakes in projects that can happen in the same time, or let's say that we have implemented several projects before, and some of them failed, or some of the steps of the project failed. We should understand why they failed, and we should apply those changes for the next implementation of digital transformation, let's say. So is this your experience that usually companies treat this? Let's say that this is the fifth process that they're implementing. but they didn't learn from 4 previous implementations.
I think it depends on the scale, because if we see like organizations, we have 500 plants around the earth, it's really hard to take the experience of failed projects from a first one to a 23rd one. But if we talk only about the in-house projects which are done inside of the company, the lesson learned process. So the process that we have actually some knowledge established, and we know what is failed. So after we fix it, it's good that those words would be spread. So I think companies are learning from their mistakes, but a bigger company, it is more hard to actually achieve the, I would say the like I would say a strategy or a way to communicate about this kind of errors and mistakes.
Sure. And then let's say that during this failed process, we were dealing with a closed solution, right? How do you fix that?
Yeah, if you have, for example, we see it often in ERPs. Systems, for example, that company buys a ERP when it's like hiring 20 people, and after we have 200, or there's a problem because the system doesn't fit to us. And the problem is not only that if we have a closed system, and with that we cannot add anything else. We cannot communicate with anything else. We cannot have a bigger database. We cannot have bigger functionalities, or the functionalities which we can have, it doesn't exactly fit our needs, right? And this is a big problem. And most of the times, the only way is to actually just buy a new one, and the old one goes to the garbage. Sorry, that's how it is. If we didn't think about it before. Because you don't have source codes, right? Probably the company which sold you the system will not do it exactly for you, like a fit proposition, because it's not cost effective for them and for you as well. So it's a dead end road, I suppose.
Yeah, but this is something that we see a lot, that companies, they start with off-the-shelf or out-of-the-box solution because it's cheaper, because it seems that the implementation will be easier. But with time, that out-of-the-box solution is just not good enough for them, right?
I think it depends, because if you have a solution which is using only by one person, right? You don't have to think about like what will happen, and it's cheap. You don't have to think about it what will happen after like 5 years with it. But from the beginning, if it's something which will be used by more people, even from a different areas of a business unit, I'm sorry, but this is not a good way to think about closed solutions.
Sure. One other thing that I think we should mention is, whenever you have this failed process, whenever your task is to make sure that you will do it again, but in a way that will be good for the company. I think something that is kind of obvious, but is not happening, is the communicating to stakeholders that were the part of the process that failed. I think that's it's like I said, it seems obvious, but most people don't do it. They just analyze the process, but very often the reason for that project to fail was people, right? People that didn't understand something, people that were not following the regulations, people that were not capable of using this solution in a way that that would make the whole process efficient. So talking to stakeholders that were the part of the sales of not the sales of the digitalization process, I think that's one of the keys that are to fixing it, that is very often not happening.
Yeah, and I think in next iterations of implementing different technologies, we have to pay more attention on the specification, because most of the time we are, most of people are very interested when the implementations go on, right?
Mhm.
And during the implementation, we are figuring out what else system should have, and that shouldn't be time for that. The time for functionalities, for defining the functionalities, should be before the project even started. And that's a problem. So we want to purchase a solution very fast and implement it fast as well. But with that, it's, you can do it in a different way. But the problem is on the in the end, because, if you have a vendor which comes to you and say, okay, but we didn't have that in the contract, right? Because the contract is way different, and now you are thinking about the specification, right? So that's something wrong. And also the problem is, I think, about budgeting, because if you have a really small scale project, let's say it costs like 10,000 euros or something like that, you will think, okay, I can make a decision as a one person. I can make a decision to purchase that or that, and if it's failed, no one will know about it. So if no one will know about it, how the company can learn from my mistake, right? So that's the problem, because if you have a big scale project, probably everyone will know if it fails. But the smaller ones are those, if you put it together, it's a lot of money, which, goes to a garbage, because people are scared to actually tell about their mistakes.
Sure. Any I let you choose.
Okay.
What do you want to do? You want to do real life examples, or you want to do takeaways for this episode?
I think we said some real examples, but I think an example from you and from me, it will be good for the audience.
Sure. You want to start? You want to start with the example, because I feel like you're more hands-on consultant, and then I will share mine, but I think it would be good if you can start.
Yeah, sure. So like a few months ago, I had a company which comes to me and said, okay, so we purchase a MES system for around 30 machines. It costs like half, I think 200,000 euros or something like that. And after the implementation, it's shown that actually the system doesn't gather data from the machines in the scale that they think it will. It only had information about production counter, and that's it. And everything else came from the operator. And they asked me, okay, so what we can do about it, because our customer, one of the biggest automotive brands, said that they need more data. And so I did what we talk about today. So I figured out, okay, so what kind of systems are implemented on those machines? Is it only one, or you have few? Then I get into like what was actually wrong. Do you have a contract which said that it's only one information, or there's nothing said about it? Then we check the documentation from the customer. So does your customer said exactly what kind of information he wants from the machines, or he doesn't have this kind of information, right? And after a few steps, we had a clear-cut strategy what actually goes wrong, and the problem was between communication between the customer, the final customer, and the integrator which implements the IT system. And the purchasing goes wrong because it went too fast, and the purchasing department didn't send this documentation to the implementators. And in the end, we helped to negotiate with the company which actually implements the solution to rebuild the system to have this other functionalities, and it was the most cost effective way to do it, because the alternative, it was like take the system, put it to the garbage, and just build a new one which actually have these functionalities.
Okay, so from my perspective, you always, whenever the project fails, one of the things that you have to do is to reevaluate the project goals, right? And then if you are to do that, you have to, consider the things that went wrong. And from my perspective, the most cases that I'm dealing with, most cases went wrong at some point, right? Most cases of digitalization were not, run properly for 100 of different reasons. But the two main reasons that I'm seeing and experiencing is not making sure that the end user, is aligned with the whole project itself. So that's one, and the other one is the integration part. So most cases that I see, they didn't work because companies have this tendency, to start with a smaller budget, and because of the smaller budget, they do not work with custom solutions. They'd rather start small and then have this off-the-shelf solution, out-of-the-box solution, and that solution, looks good whenever the salesperson is presenting it, but then it causes all kinds of problems with integration, and usually the product, the off-the-shelf solution, is, let's say, implemented 70%, and only then the company can realize that it's not gonna work. The integration will not happen. It was supposed to happen, but it will not happen. And then all the time that they have, invested in this off-the-shelf solution, and all the money they have invested is wasted, basically. And the conclusion that I would draw here is the custom solution is not always the best solution, right? And out-of-the-box solution is not always the best solution. So to be able to decide between those two, I would take the time and talk to relevant people, because like now that I said that there was this out-of-the-box solution that didn't work, it's not always the case. It's very often the case that out-of-the-box solution is limited, in very different ways. But I don't want this to sound like the custom work is always the best solution. It's not. But I would be very careful when choosing out-of-the-box solution in terms of integration, because the problem that I see right now in the digitalization overall is the fact that the companies keep growing and they keep adding different kind of software for different purposes, and this never ends. This is I think the problem, that all the companies are becoming IT companies. Basically, the IT department is not just addition; it's the core of what you do. And the problem with integrating this data and those systems is the core problem of companies that are entering digital transformation and the new era of like managing through data.
Okay, so I think we should end with some takeaways.
Sure.
Maybe I'll start with mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that sometimes our feeling about that project fails or not is not exactly meets the reality, right? Because we have to always think about failing or not in an angle which we define on the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So if every time you are dealing with any kind of project, you have to define the goals which he should meet. And if those goals are not defined, you cannot say the project fails or not.
Sure. I would say that whenever you're dealing with a failed project, you should reassess the technology that you wanted to use for that particular project, because it's all being determined through technology and the people using it. So what kind of technology would be best for you? If the process failed, I would try to figure out if the implementation was done right. I would try to figure out if people were following the rules of the implementation, but I would also try to figure it out if we have chosen the proper technology to address this problem.
Okay, so thank you very much for the next episode that you're with us. Please leave a comment, like, and share this episode if you think it was interesting for you. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.